Would you please pray with me? Lord our God, use the words of my mouth, the meditations of all of our hearts and our minds, that we might hear you speak to us, and that you might be our firm foundation, our rock on which we stand. Amen. So a number of years ago, back when I was still at the university, I had the opportunity to go to Japan to to speak at a conference. And it was a great experience going to this very foreign country where they speak a different language, the foods are quite different, even the smell is different. And it's funny, in Japan, as foreign as it is, Japan has this fascination with America. And so you'll often see English words used in signs and advertisements. And one afternoon, towards the end of the conference, went with a colleague who took me and another friend to see their village, their home village. And so we're driving through these small towns, and you see advertisements with words like super and loud. And then we pass this one storefront, and it says, "Love drugs." I thought, what does that mean? So is this a spot that sells aphrodisiacs? They're like love potions that they're selling here? Or is this a pharmacist who just really is passionate about their work? They love drugs. Or maybe love was just used as a place name, like Star Drugs or Philip Pharmacy. Couldn't figure out what they really meant by the word love there. And yet, even in America, even in English, it's a hard word to pin down. I imagine whoever used that word in Japan just liked the sound of it. But for us, when we use the word love, it's hard to tell what people really mean. Sometimes we talk about love just to mean that we really are passionately fond of something. I love this football team. Or I love pizza. We can use love to talk about that strong emotional attachment we have to people we care about. How we love our parents, or we love our children. We can use love to talk about that fluttery feeling we get in our stomach and that way our heart beats when we see this person that we're in love with. And yet, as Christians, love has a richer meaning than what we often use it for. And John tells us how to think about love, how to think about Christian love, how to think about true love in this passage. John says this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. This is how we know what love is. We look at Jesus. When we look at Jesus, we see that Jesus gave up his position, his authority, his power, his role as the second person of the Trinity, to come and be with us. We see that Jesus went to the cross for us, not asking, not quizzing us about whether we were worthy of the sacrifice he was making for us. Not making sure that we had all our ducks in a row before he did this. We see in Jesus that love is self-sacrificing. That love costs us. That love is not easy. And John tells us, "Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions." and in truth. John is saying that the true Christian love, the love we see in Jesus, is an action. Love is a verb. It's something we do, not just something we talk about. Shane Claiborne is a young hipster Christian kind of guy. Claiborne spent a year living and working with Mother Teresa in India. And he says that often people come and they ask him about her. What is she like? And he says, Mother Teresa didn't glow. She didn't walk on water. She was just a normal person. You couldn't tell looking at her that there was anything special about her. But he said one thing stood out with her. Her feet. He said if you saw her feet, they were calloused and cramped and misshapen. Because people would send shoes for the orphans, shoes for the poor in the village she served. And she always made sure that the best shoes went to the people who most needed them. And whatever was left, whether it fit her or not, she'd take those. Love as an action, love that costs something. This is how we know what love is. I've seen love practiced here in this congregation. Love that costs. Love that is self-sacrificial. I've seen this congregation put a roof on the house of someone who needed a roof and couldn't afford it, couldn't do it for themselves. And yet, people here reached out in love, in action, to put that roof up. I've seen this congregation surround a young woman who had a drinking problem, who tried to take her own life. Support her and care for her, so that she now is working with the homeless in a nearby city. I've seen this congregation reach out in love, in action to one another, sharing of your resources and your time. So the people who were in need of a ride received one. People who were in need of help moving in received it. I've seen love in action here in the Good News Club as kids who have no place to go on a Wednesday afternoon are surrounded with love. Table parents volunteering time just to be with them, to shape their lives. And some of you have grown up with that and know the effect that love in action has had on you. And we've experienced it ourselves, in big ways and in small. We had a dead tree in the back of our yard a few years ago, and people just stepped up, and men came and cut it down and hauled it off for us. Seeing true love and being a people who practice that kind of love is what it means to be church. It's what you are and will continue to be. And the great thing about that kind of self-giving, sacrificial love is that it not only blesses the people, the persons who receive it, but it blesses us when we do it. Do you hear what John said here? He says, this is how we know that we belong to the truth and how we set our hearts at rest in his presence. It's when we practice love in action. when we give of our substance, when we give of what matters to us, in caring for others, that's how we know that we belong to God. We don't earn it by doing good works. But we're assured of our belonging to the truth, and we have our hearts set at peace in doing that. Years ago, when we had 3 kids in elementary school, many years ago. And one night, in the middle of the night, woke up and looked over and Lee wasn't there. And so I got up and I looked in the living room and there she was lying on the couch, feeling like maybe she had a flu or something because her gut ached. She was weak and just feeling terrible. And in talking together, we realized that she probably had appendicitis. We needed to get her to the emergency room. And it's 2 in the morning. And we have 3 kids lying in bed. It's like, what do you do? So I called up a friend of ours from the church who lived a few blocks away. 2 in the morning, ring him up, and this groggy voice, hello. Randy? Yeah. Lee's not well. I need to take him to the hospital. Can you come watch our kids? And in just a few minutes, there he was at the door. Laid down on the couch, shoot us out. And it took longer than I would have liked at the emergency room. Eventually, they got the diagnosis right and got her into surgery and got Lee's appendix taken out. And finally was able to call Randy after school had started and everything, and tell him what was going on and to thank him. And as we talked to him a little later, he said, I was in a really dry spot spiritually. I should be thanking you because I needed an opportunity to serve. To serve like it meant it, to serve in a way that cost something. So when you are in that place, that we all get there at times where we're just dry spiritually, where we feel disconnected from Jesus. We know in our heads that we are Christian, but we don't feel it. Find someone to love. Find someone to love in action, in ways that cost, that mean something. That is how we set our hearts at peace with God. That's how we get through those dry spells. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to do so for one another. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.